o'clock. We'll go ahead and call the meeting and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up on the agenda is the approval of the memorandum of the February 7th, 2022 regular meeting. Copy has been posted. Counselors, are there any questions for that? I do have a couple of changes, Amy, just to note, but any questions from counselors? There was just on the consideration for the appropriation on the roundabout. There's just some wording that says additional appropriate resolution, and obviously that should say appropriation. And then when we went through the public hearing, there was a comment where I said this is a public hearing and I approve publication as opposed to I have proof of publication.
Okay,
So just
we can make those changes.
Other than that, I'll make a motion to approve the memorandum.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6-0. Up next is a request to speak on agenda items. I have two cards. I only see one here. So Allison, if you would like to come up, you get 3 minutes and I will give you a warning at 2.
Perfect, thank you. I'm Allison Gutwein, Executive Director of the Zionsville Chamber of Commerce, 1112 North 9th Street. The Zionsville Chamber Advocacy Committee and Zionsville Chamber of Commerce would like to express support for the use of a portion of ARPA funds to assist businesses that were adversely affected by the COVID pandemic. The economic response of businesses in our community was widely varied, and many of our businesses suffered prolonged hardships due to the inability to access funding. Recently, it was announced that the Restaurant Relief Fund had exhausted funding before all of those that had applied had received payments. Many of the businesses that we represent, those with 15 or fewer employees, make up the microbusiness community that often have less access to available funding options because of limited capacity with regards to time, access to assistance, or bandwidth to administer potentially complicated grants. It is imperative that we consider the impact of a financial infusion into the business community. Supply chain woes and the cost of sharply rising goods, incongruous with the cost of wage increases, still plague the businesses. The inability to find, train, educate, and employ long-term workers is a difficulty across many industries. In order to retain our businesses, it would be wise to use a portion of the ARPA funds to assist the still ailing business community. As the voice of the business community, we look forward to offering any guidance or support as these funds are distributed. Our business community is a vital source of income for tourism and sense of place for those that live in the area. We want to support and retain those businesses that make Zionsville the community that it is, and act as a beacon for other communities to follow our lead and support the business community when the opportunity arises. Thank you.
Thank you. Still have a minute left. All right, Amy, is that the only one we have then?
Yeah, that's all we have.
Very good. Next on the agenda is a mayor administration update. Amy, do we have an administration or mayor update?
No, we do not.
President Plunkett, can I just point out, this is now our 3rd year on council. This is the 3rd year of the Styron administration, and this council still does not have financial information for the town. Like, any CEO that didn't provide that to their board in 3 months would be a problem. We're on year 3. I'd like to know, like, gas prices are skyrocketing. What does that do to our budget? I'd like to understand where our revenues are. I'd like to see anything. And every month we have an opportunity here for the mayor to present that information to us, and she chooses not to do it. So I'm going to bring this up every single time because I am flying blind here, and we're supposed to be the financial fiscal body of this town. And we have no information. We have no CFO. I have no update when we're going to get a CFO. Like
No update on why we lost our last CFO.
nothing. Like this is crazy. This is crazy. And I just wanted to point that out for the public so that they're aware that this body does not have any financial information about your tax dollars. And that's a problem. That's it.
Moving on to old business. Before we do move into old and new business, I just real briefly want to point out as a procedural step, we'll have discussion and Q&A with petitioners as they come up. And once that's complete, I'll certainly call for a motion. And once we have that motion and that motion is seconded, then we'll have additional dialogue with council. And then we'll call for a vote. So I just think it's important for the public to understand the process and obviously for council, to just be aware of that stuff too. So first on old business is a consideration of an ordinance to establish an equitable impact fee for the purpose of planning and financing park and recreational infrastructure to serve new developments in the town of Zionsville, Indiana. This is ordinance 2022-02. This is a final reading. And Jared, if you want to come up and share anything.
Good evening, councilors. Jared Logsdon, Superintendent of Parks and Rec here in Zionsville. This ordinance before you is an update to the 2012 impact fee, establishing a new fee based on census data that we will in turn utilize these collected fees to develop new park amenities. So allowing growth to pay for growth. So we can always have a pristine park system that expands as our community continues to grow. So we kind of went over that in detail at the last meeting, and I'm happy to answer any follow-up questions.
Questions for Jared?
No, but I watched the last meeting since I wasn't here, just so everybody's aware. So great presentation and all makes sense for the park impact fees.
Assuming no additional conversation, I would certainly entertain a motion.
Move to adopt.
First by Vice President Burke,
Second.
second by Councilor Garrett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you, Jared. Up next is consideration of an ordinance to amend the town of Zionsville zoning ordinance. This is ordinance 2022-03. As a brief reminder, this is continued from the February 7th, 2022 meeting. Mr. DeLong.
Good evening. Thank you. No new information to provide you from the continuance from last month. Certainly, again, the recommendations in front of you from your plan commission. Certainly happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. DeLong, I have a question. Based on your expertise on this particular piece of property, what is your opinion of the highest and best use of a piece of property that's surrounded by a fire department, an apartment building, whatever the use is for the land for the Boys and Girls Club, and then the storage facility across the street? I'm not naming the houses that are residential that are catty corner at this moment, but there's also Stonegate to the east. Is it your expert opinion that R2 is the best designation for the highest and best use for this real estate?
I recommend a higher designation of residential for this real estate, but the comprehensive plan does not support such a recommendation. This site is ideal for infill development, which would be a higher level residential than just what an R2 could yield. Certainly that's a conversation for a different day. If an end buyer were to seek that, certainly a comprehensive plan amendment to support a higher density is certainly something that would be advantageous.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Any other questions for Mr. DeLong?
Yeah, I do have one. Are you the petitioner?
Administration is yes.
Okay.
Yes, the town of Zionsville filed this petition, yes.
And I don't suppose you would know because I had asked really for kind of a legal opinion. Heather presented at the last meeting and she was almost all but confident that ARPA funds could be used for groups like Habitat in the future to purchase land to put up low-income housing or do the work that they do. And that was very exciting to me. And I felt like it was an alternative to this, where we could keep this land adjacent to the fire department where they can use this for future planning. Did you guys talk about that? Do you have anything to add to what Heather had suggested, that might be an opportunity?
No, I have no additional information to add to that concept. Certainly, this action of rezoning the property does not facilitate any sort of donation, any sort of other action other than changing the zoning. Any sort of future transaction would be with the town council itself, as the property is titled with the town council.
Yeah, I understand. I didn't think you would, but it would have been helpful to have an answer to that.
Yeah, and I'm struggling with that too, because after our last meeting, I voted for the rezone, saying, hey, we could stop it there before we move on to the next step. I had vocalized in the public meeting. I'm looking at you, Wayne, but I'm just saying this for the public record for the most part. But in our meeting, I said, hey, I think we can move forward on this. We can pause before making the next step of the donation, because we don't have any sort of financial data, don't have anything to really go by to make sure that this is a good idea. Nor have we really had anybody present to us on what the purpose of the rezone is, other than just to rezone it, because we're told, hey, this is a two-step thing. It doesn't have anything to do with that donation to Habitat, but it does have something to do with it. So I also, after our meeting, which I did vote favorably for the rezone, I reached out directly to the mayor and suggested to her, said, hey, I'm for this. I want this to get passed. We need to see financial data, and you really need to come tell us and put out there why this needs to happen. And neither of those things have been done to date. I guess so my next question for council would be, if we don't make a decision on this tonight, if we were to continue it, I know there's a timeline for the plan commission. Where are we on that timeline?
It's a 90-day timeline from the day that the plan commission recommended it to the council. So consideration at your next meeting. So I think we'd have one more meeting. Just trying to do math in my head, which is not my strong suit.
I think this is such a good cause and a worthy cause. And I think the location, I think it's an ideal location, because the information put out to people in the town about doing a habitat home, a lot of people misunderstood as putting in some huge development of low income housing, and I think they greatly misunderstood what was going on. I think this is an ideal location for a family that would be suitable for Habitat, especially being across from the Boys and Girls Club. I think that's, for a family, in that situation, I think that'd be ideal. I think it is a real shame that the mayor who started this ball rolling has not felt compelled enough by this case to come forward, even when requested to, because I was on her side. I wanted her to come here and convince the rest of the council to do this, and she opted not to. So I'm just voicing my frustration.
Wayne, did I get a head nod from you on 90 days? Because I'm just checking
Correct.
it.
The
It's 90,
statute
right?
does read 90 days, and certainly,
I thought I was looking at you, but I
yeah.
want to make sure I'm looking at.
Wayne, if it was voted on and voted down, what's the timeline on when something could come back before this body?
Well, certainly an adverse decision on a rezoning request would require a 1-year delay in any future filings. Certainly a party could go to the plan commission and indicate and request a waiver from that rule, attempting to demonstrate that a substantial change has happened from the time of the initial filing and the denial to the refiling. And so it would be up to the plan commission to determine if a substantial change had happened to allow for a decrease in that 1 year filing delay rule.
And is that the case even if there were to be a different quote petitioner? Or is that rule just limited to the same petitioner?
That rule is tied to the ground, and so you would work to demonstrate what has changed with the petition to allow it for the plan commission to be convinced that it should be refiled and reheard within
Right.
that 1 year window.
Thank you for clarifying that.
So I was able to confirm with Amy that January 18th, 2022 is the date that the referral to the town council came. So we're closing in on, a month-ish, month and a half. So we've got at least one more meeting that you could consider it. If you take no action, then the proposal will stand as approved. So we do need to take an action probably in the next meeting or so. We can walk that back.
If we weren't taking action today, would we need to still vote for continuance?
You would. You'd have a motion and a second and a vote on continuance.
It is unfortunate, and I think, Brian, your points are spot on, that a group like Habitat is fodder in between a mayor that refuses to provide or cannot provide or will not provide financial information to this council. I am not voting for anything that has financial implications, including giving away town assets, until I have financial information. And that is a shame for Habitat. And that is not an indictment on Habitat. It is unfortunate for Habitat. We've been asking for this information for a long time. If perhaps these things getting voted down forces the mayor to finally spend some time on getting us financial information so we can make decisions with all the information, then that might be something good that comes out of that. But I'm voting no for this, strictly out of wanting financial information. I think Habitat's a great cause, and I hope this works out for them eventually. But until I get financial information,
I'm with you.
I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm just voicing that it's extremely sad to me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Any other questions for Mr. DeLong? Thanks, Wayne. I would certainly entertain a motion at this time.
Make a motion to continue.
Motion to continue by Counselor Trailer. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Counselor Culp. I think again, in council dialogue and, my frustration with this process is there certainly has been a path forward. It's been laid out. I mean, at the last council meeting, we said that we need financial data and we need a training facility for the fire department. I mean, those were two very, very simple exercises that could move this forward. And it really surprises me to sit here 2 weeks later, knowing that if there's a project or if there's something that someone wants and a path forward has been laid out, that path forward just doesn't happen. It really surprises me. So, I mean, I stand with you guys in that I can't certainly support any financial recommendations without having any financial data. I mean, we don't have 2021 information. It's March 7th. That's hard. That's a hard, in my line of work, you don't get away with that. I don't think you do with anybody's line of work. Any other council discussion? So the motion on the table is to continue to the March 21st town council meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
Nay, or aye.
So 3-3.
Wait, I don't think that's right.
I don't think that's right either.
Let's just do a roll call so we have that. Okay.
President Plunkett.
No.
Vice President Burke.
Wait, hold on. So you're voting no on the continuance? We're only voting on the continuance?
Correct.
So you want to take a vote tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
With you, sorry.
Vice President Burke.
Yes.
Counselor Culp.
Yes.
Counselor Garrett.
No.
Counselor Melton.
No.
And Counselor Trailer.
Yes.
So yeah, we're tied.
Okay. Any other options on the table?
You tell us, can we?
Well, we have a tie vote, so we don't have a continuance motion that stands. So we could take a vote on the petition itself, if you're prepared to do that. I'm not sure you are with the 3-3 vote, or we take no action.
No rock, paper, scissors or?
It doesn't fail. We can still recalendar it. It's just we don't have a we don't have agreement on continuing it. So
Well, my only point with this is there's no reason for me to assume we're going to get what we want to make the decision that the administration wants.
And I want to give her as much rope to hang herself with as she can get. Yeah, so give her every bit of time that we've got available to us. And if she doesn't provide us with the information we've been asking for, we've done everything we can possibly do in good faith.
Heather, do we need a motion? I mean, I will make a motion to deny, but I assume it's going to end up with the same vote. Is that cleaner or is there no action taken?
we can just take no action, then it's at the president's discretion to recalendar.
Well, listen, I mean, we're gonna have to, if it goes 3-3 on a no vote, we got to recalendar it anyway. I mean, I don't know if anybody would be willing to change their vote, but I would entertain a motion.
Well, plus we'd have Alex next time.
Well,
Maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
there's 7 of us. There's a high likelihood one of us won't be here next month or next meeting.
I mean, I'll make a motion to deny. Go one more time.
I'll second. First by Counselor Garrett, second by Counselor Melton. Amy, so can we do a roll call here?
Yeah.
So this is a motion to deny. If you vote in favor, you are voting in favor of denying the petition.
Correct.
President Plunkett,
Yes.
Vice President Burke,
Yes.
Counselor Culp,
No.
Counselor Garrett,
Yes.
Counselor Melton,
Yes.
Counselor Trailer.
No,
So the motion to deny the rezone passes 4 in favor, 2 opposed. Okay. Up next is new business. Consideration of appointments to the people of Zionsville for the Aesthetics of Zionsville, the Pizzazz Committee. This was, Heather, as we had talked about before, a request from Pizzazz, and we had expanded the committee by an additional 4 folks, and these are the individuals that they've recommended for appointment, correct?
Correct. I think we had a couple vacancies and we expanded it by 2 additional members.
So we just need to vote to approve the 4 one-year terms to the
Correct.
Pizzazz.
Yeah. And that's just a pause there because I can see Counselor Culp's look on his face. So since you were a yes, you'll sign in the yes approve, and everyone who voted yes actually goes in the nay.
Yeah, I understand that. There's just
Okay.
3 different documents. I just want to make sure.
Just 3 copies, same
Yeah,
document.
yeah. I just want to make sure.
So if you
Clear as mud.
voted to deny the rezone, then you sign as nay.
Actually,
Other way around.
you'll sign us a yes.
Yeah.
So basically, at the end of the
Flip-flop.
day,
Flip
both
flop.
myself and Counselor Trailer will put nay. The rest of you will put yay.
Okay.
You told me about my name there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, opposite. Just do the opposite of what Joe's doing.
My new doing or my last doing?
The current.
Does anybody have any questions on the Pizzazz appointments?
And appreciate everyone serving.
Yeah.
It's a good group.
Happy to do it.
I'll make a motion to approve the Pizzazz Committee 2022 appointments.
Second.
Second by Vice President Burke. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Up next on the agenda is a Winterfest presentation. Jared, I believe you're going to take care of this.
All right, good evening and thank you. Apologize for the delay in this. It took a while to get the final bills for the Winterfest wrap up. So the rink has been taken back to Austin, Texas, and we are removing the platform from the parking lot, returning Mulberry Fields to its regular scheduled programming. So tonight I want to talk about the Winter Fest event that occurred from December 11th through January 2nd out at Mulberry Fields. This was an inaugural event in Zionsville and an opportunity to create a new tradition here in the winter months. I want to discuss first kind of the path that led to Winterfest. So in 2020, the Zionsville Parks Department surveyed the community and asked specifically, what do you want to see from your Parks Department? We historically have a long tradition of nature education as well as exceptional facilities, but we wanted to find out what our residents were seeking most and most often going to other communities to get. So among those top results and the top priorities for our investment in future programs were outdoor events, fitness and wellness programs, and outdoor recreation. So with this in mind, at January 2021, we began to kind of formulate what Zionsville Park's first large community event would look like. So we landed on a wintertime activity because that is our time of year when there's the least amount to do outside because of Indiana winters. So we began to develop an ice skating event and do a little market research to determine what our wintertime event was going to look like. In May 2021, I was before you all at a town council meeting to request an additional appropriation of $160,000 and 162, I'm sorry, 14-hour day. $160,250, 145 of which was from Fund 211, which is a fee-based recreational fund created with user fees designed to be self-sustaining for our programming, and $20,250 from the general fund for the services to accompany Winterfest. So with that, we discussed kind of what the anticipated revenue was for this event. And in that stage, we are anticipating anywhere from $123,000 up to $259,000 for the operation of the ice rink. So with that approved, that additional appropriation, we completed a contract with Ice America for $207,469 for both the ice rink rental and the operations of the ice rink. So from there, we got to work and began to imagine what this event would look like in Zionsville. Our program staff began to create additional programming and community opportunities around the ice rink. And we began to contact food vendors and other partners in the community to make this large event happen. Our maintenance team got to work and began building the platform for the ice rink, which is a huge task, utilizing $36,000 in lumber to create a mobile platform that not only will serve future Zionsville Winterfest activities, but also be utilized throughout the year as a stage as we expand our programming in parks.
So Jared, we own that. You're storing that now?
That is ours out at the Perkins storage facility. So we already are planning to use that in the spring and then again in the summer with our Arts in the Parks event. So now we have a very large mobile stage that we can use pieces as needed and create the sizes we need. We also partner with the Zionsville Parks Foundation, who assisted us with donated decor and really growing out the event and creating a presence in the park. So I can't thank enough the staff of the Zionsville Parks Department. We are small, but we are mighty, and they were able to transform that parking lot in Mulberry Fields from just an empty lot into a true winter festival out there. So I can't thank our programming and maintenance team enough. So Winterfest was designed so that everyone gets to play. We created 39 programs throughout the month for all ages. On top of just the ice rink, which was kind of the capstone, we had community celebrations. The reindeer visited the park. Santa stopped by a couple times, and truly just creating something for all ages and all abilities. Coming out of COVID, we wanted to also introduce an activity that could be done safely outside. So this was also equally as important about outdoor recreation as it was reconnecting our community. So we developed the showcase area that we had local performers and groups perform all month long, and the audience and the community began to gather around them. So a quick overview of the numbers. The Winterfest Ice Rink saw 5,608 skaters hit the ice, some probably literally. Over 2,070 participants attended 39 Zionsville Parks programs throughout the month. We were quite the buzz in the town with over 19,000 web page visits to our town website, which was the most visited page on the website throughout the year, and over 11,000 impressions on social media. So every time we posted about Winterfest, we got quite the engagement, which was fantastic to see. Now breaking it down to the numbers of the event, our all-in cost for this first year was $287,718.80. That is every light bulb, every tablecloth, including the large platform that we built and the electrical upgrades required for the site. So as we pull out those first year costs, which were approximately 81,000, we're right around that budget we anticipated for operations, which is about 207,000. Of that 207,000, we were able to generate 104,000 in revenue and $19,000 in sponsorships, 14 of which was cash and 5,000 in kind. So you can take a look at the breakdown. And while this is slightly lower than we were anticipating, the weather was definitely not on our side throughout this Winterfest event. So much so that we actually had to move the ribbon cutting to the following Saturday to officially commence the event. So unfortunately, we could not control the weather, especially if it impacted our weekends during school break, which most certainly were our best days throughout the event. So kind of looking at this as a worst case scenario for what we could bring in each year. So I'm very proud of the fact that we were able to secure 19,000 in sponsorships, and we've already began a robust process of trying to recruit more sponsorships in the community. And we're also already seeing that welcomed with some of our smaller events throughout the year. So again, while this was less than anticipated, Winterfest doesn't operate inside of a vacuum. And our goal with the Fund 211 is to create a sustainable program that we're able to offer recreational opportunities to the community throughout the year in a sustainable manner. So this fund is to operate outside of the general fund and be self-supported. So when we're thinking about Winterfest and the revenue it can bring in, we also need to talk about garden plots, shelter reservations, and other programs and services we offer to the community that are fee-based and which go into this fund and help support other free programming. So we are moving towards that cost recovery philosophy where the more beneficial a program is to the community, the higher the subsidy rate for that event. So this summer, as we're looking to add Life of Lincoln and Arts in the Park, we're looking at offering those to the community completely subsidized and doing that within our allocated budget. So as we move up the pyramid, as something becomes more specialized or to benefiting just one individual or a small group, there is a greater cost recovery to that. And then as those proceeds exceed the actual costs, that surplus revenue is reinvested to subsidize the other programs. So it is a work in progress and we're continually moving towards that. But we were able to finance all of the first year of Winterfest within our general fund allocations while still completing all of the priorities for the year. So much so that we're still able to transfer approximately $300,000 into the Parks Non-Reverting Capital Fund, which every year that we don't spend our entire Parks Improvement Fund, that money is then piggy banked for later for emergencies or future park planning. So I'm very proud of that. We were able to work within our means and find new ways to support our continuing growing portfolio of things we offer the community. So with that in mind, as we begin to take a look at what the next year of Winterfest might look like, we did want to check with the community and see how we did this first year. So we did have a post-event survey and we were able to reach approximately 561 of our participants, which ironically is approximately 10% of those that skated at the Winterfest event. So a couple numbers from the survey, 72% gave the event a 4 or 5-star rating, 1 out of 5. 93% were in favor of the location being at Mulberry Fields. 84% said that they would tell a friend, and 96% said they would attend future Winterfest programming. So from there, we actually dialed in a little bit further and asked specifically what they enjoy most about Winterfest. Again, 59%, the majority said that they enjoyed having the ice rink here in town. Beyond that, 16% said that they appreciated the community and the feeling that the event was able to spur in the community and that opportunity to gather and reconnect. Again, the location at Mulberry Fields was the next, and then 7% were just extremely happy to have something to do in December. Drilling down even further, we asked the question of what we could do next year to improve. And overwhelmingly, we saw trends emerge, a larger ice rink, more food vendors. So as we plan for the following years, we look to incorporate that and ensure we're satisfying those kind of requests. So from there, I'm happy to answer any question. And I just want to thank Zionsville for coming out to Winterfest and supporting this new program.
So Jared, and I asked you to come today. Normally, something like this would have been the purview of the Parks Board, and they do a good job with their money. I think the reason why I was interested in this was the ask from this council for additional funds to get this kickstarted. And I'm not necessarily, you know, as you sort of talk about your triangle there, right, of community benefit versus individual benefit, it makes sense. I don't necessarily look at these events as having to make money like a private enterprise, as long as they are benefiting the community, the memories made, et cetera. But we also want to be good stewards of the town's money. I think the only concern that I had was that there was my understanding, a professional management company involved at one point, and a decision was made by the administration to remove that. And I just worry or wonder if the event could have gone better from a vendor standpoint, sponsor standpoint, whatnot, had they stay engaged, allowing Parks and your dedicated team to continue to focus on what they do best. So there's kind of an opportunity cost there of removing professionals, putting your guys in, and them not being able to do that. So it's not much of a question, more of a statement. I guess I kind of wanted to lay the groundwork that if you came back to this council, and I'm not saying you would, because you may have gotten over the hump with the one-time cost. If you came back for more money for this type of programming, I would probably insist on some type of professional oversight for those programming. Again, this is not negating the hard work that your team did, but I just think mistakes that may have been made, they may have guided us through them and could have made the program even better. So just something to lay the groundwork there for. You may not come back to us because it may now be within your parks operating budget. And if it is, great. And if it's sustainable, even better. But if you came back to the well, that would be my ask. I just wanted to lay that groundwork.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So I'm just curious. I know the weather was awful, but in looking at your good days versus your bad days, were you able to get a sense of if the weather had been more cooperative, I agree with you. This year was like worst case scenario in my mind for revenue on this. I'm curious if you were able to kind of estimate or calculate a best case scenario by looking at our actual numbers, like how many skaters you had on the best day.
Yep. So our best day was most definitely between the winter break when school was out. Absolutely. So we were averaging 6,000 to 8,000 a day, which kind of tells you, what we were able to generate with good numbers in that. And, I've heard stories that we actually maxed out the ice where people were waiting to get on at that rate with those numbers. So I believe the community was there. They were excited to come out when they had the time to, but again, January 1st would have been a fantastic Saturday to be out there. And that was where we had to delay several hours before we could even open. So severely impacted by the weather this first year.
Jared, you made mention of people waiting, and I saw one of the requests or one of the comments was it'd be nice if it was expanded. Is that something that that what you guys created or built could be added on to and could be bigger?
Absolutely. Yep. So that platform we built is modular and goes together like Lego blocks, piece by piece. So with additional lumber, which we haven't utilized, we could build more platforms as needed. So these ice rinks, they come kind of in 5-foot sections, and then they go in 10 meters one the other direction. So adding another row, extending, that's all very possible. So right now we're crunching the numbers and looking at how can we make this more sustainable? What can we do in-house on a maintenance aspect to reduce costs with that load in, load out? And then also, how can we support it with more sponsorships and programs?
Even utilizing some kind of scheduling where like you get online and schedule your time that you want to go to the ice skating rink to try and keep the same size skating rink, but control the crowd. maybe,
Yeah,
in the future.
absolutely. That was about a 50-50 decision, and we decided to go with this first year of just as you show up. But time slots absolutely would potentially benefit our sales and our peak hours and distributing that better.
Hey, I just want to thank you guys. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. I agree. And that's a question I was going to ask that Brian asked about. I'm sure you sliced the data by day to see, if the weather was more cooperative, what could you look at? Obviously, you had some fixed costs this year that you won't have moving forward. So that'll save you $90K. So, we were out there quite a bit. My family really enjoyed it. My
Good.
neighbors, everybody I heard. I mean, I thought it was really cool, and appreciate your vision for bringing it to the town.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jared?
Thanks, Jared.
Thanks,
All right.
Jared.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next is consideration of ordinance approving an American Rescue Plan Act plan. This is ordinance 2022-04. This is a first reading, and I believe, Heather, you're going to
I am.
introduce this.
So you have before you an ordinance that would establish our very first American Rescue Plan Act. This is something that we have been talking with the mayor's team about, and it's something that the council's been talking about now for several months, at least in this first step that we're considering this evening, which is a premium pay stipend for our frontline responders, particularly our police officers and firefighters who were working with the public while the rest of us were at home and shut down during COVID. This is really the start of the plan. You may recall that the town is getting $6,402,231.80 in a total appropriation. And we've received to date $3,201.
3 million.
3,000,000. Jared's catching on, where'd he go? But $3,201,115.90, which we currently have in the town in our ARPA fund. So one of the things that we're considering as part of this first action, to be able to expend any money from the ARPA fund, we need to have adopted a plan. We have been given a lot of flexibility. We talked about that a couple of meetings ago with the final rule, which allows us to kind of sweep some of our dollars into a general bucket for lost revenue, which is something that wasn't present in the interim rule that was originally discussed. So what we are contemplating here is we'll allocate a portion of the plan dollars for this initial premium pay stipend for frontline police and fire. And then we will have the rest sort of deposited or budgeted in this other more general category. We actually have a report that's coming up. Cindy and I were talking about it prior to the meeting at the end of April, where we'll do our first report to the government. We'll need to identify for them that we're using this lost revenue item as part of our plan, because that's a one-time opportunity for us to use that bucket for spending. We can always come back and amend the plan, and I think that's the goal of council leadership, is to make sure that we have put something on paper so we can start to move with the pieces that we know the council supports, including the premium pay stipend we're talking about this evening. And then we'll come back and amend the plan as we have projects on the table, like that were discussed in ideas from the community or other things that we ultimately want to spend, the remainder of the dollars on. So we have before you tonight an ordinance that really sets up our premium pay stipend. It's a one-time payment to members of the Zionsville Fire Department and to members of the Zionsville Police Department. Again, this is, we've had conversation. I know there's been additional conversation about, the scope of a premium pay stipend, what employees we want to include in or out. And this is certainly just a first step to match really what our other communities are doing to kind of give back to those first responders. So you'll see in the proposal that this would provide up to $5,000 for full-time firefighters. There is a requirement in ARPA that it can't exceed more than $13 an hour. So I want to thank Joe Keel, who had to do a lot of math to kind of figure out who could be in or out, and she did that. We really appreciate it. And then up to $1,500 for part-time firefighters, again, not to exceed the $13 of hour of work performed. And then up to $5,000 to the fire inspector and fire marshal, not to exceed $13 an hour of work performed. And then also one-time payments of up to $5,000 for the police department. So this will be the first vote. We'll have another, this is the introduction on first reading. We will have to come back to you. We were not able to get a couple pieces of information that we need to fully implement the program. One, we will need to have an amended salary ordinance. So the State Board of Accounts will require us to take all of those employees who are eligible under this agreement and actually amend the salary ordinance for 2022, since we'll be providing the additional compensation to those individuals in 2022. So we will need to have the salary ordinance, and that will be something that the council will need to vote on. The second thing we need is an additional appropriations resolution. Before we can expend any money from the fund, the council has to do an additional appropriations resolution to make the public aware that we're spending these dollars. That requires a publication and proof of publication, which we normally do, and a public hearing. So we have got that in the works, and we'll have that ready for your second March meeting, so that you will be able to do your second reading. You'll be able to vote on the additional appropriation, which will allow us to expend money and provide those stipends out to our police and fire members. And then we will have the amended salary ordinance as well.
Yeah, they're assuming this passes tonight, assuming we pass the pieces you talked about on the 21st. When would those individuals who qualify see those funds? Do you know?
Yeah, so as soon as it's enacted, and as soon as the mayor signs the ordinance, we'll have a valid ordinance, obviously, then it's immediately available to be distributed. We already have the money in the fund. So really it's just, getting that distributed as part of the payroll, and then having it as part of the approval of claims process. So it should be, I don't know, at the most, it should take no more than 30 days, but I can imagine it could go quicker than that.
Okay. Is payroll and claims?
Well, I think we are able to pay salary and benefits because you've already approved them.
Got
on
it.
the, I said claims because I
didn't want to be held up
Yes,
further by a
right.
claims.
Yeah, you've
request
already, once you approve the salary ordinance, you've actually already given the administration the authority to pay salary and benefits for
Great.
those individuals.
Great.
Thanks, Heather. This is a lot, right? I mean, last meeting and different conversations and stuff. I mean, as we've talked about before, I mean, this is kind of the first step in a long, a number of steps. I mean, we first Heather and I met with the administration on February 17th to kind of outline these first steps. And we've got a meeting on the 8th of March to figure out the next steps, right? And things have changed. Obviously, when we first started talking about this, the only folks that were eligible were police and fire.
Correct.
I mean, that was 6 months ago, right? So obviously hearing Allison talk about opportunities for businesses and understanding that, it may open up to other folks in town that with the town, I should say, that could be eligible. I mean, certainly those are all steps that we want to take and, listen and gather input on. Even, I think Vice President Burke even made reference to having some type of even a session where we could public session and get input from the community. I mean, these dollars certainly, in my opinion, should be used to benefit the community and, impact those that suffer the worst. So. Yeah,
and I appreciate taking that time. This I wish we'd done 6 months ago, but I realize it's just been taking time. This is an easy one, but I think the rest of that money is a once in a generational opportunity for our town. We just need to make sure that we're using that to the highest and best use.
Sure.
And that will take some time, so we'll have to be patient, but we will get to it.
Yeah, I agree.
Mr. President, I just would ask that we also remember that along with the police and fire, there were many people within the administration, within the town that did additional functioning work to help us continue to be televised out there. I know our IT department is somebody that I really want to focus on personally, but as we move forward with these conversations, businesses are very important. I do agree with that solely 100%, but I do also want to make sure that it's not just chamber of commerce businesses. There's so many businesses that suffered during this, the last 2 years. And, you know, I just wanted to make that comment publicly. And I mean, the teachers, we love our teachers. My wife's a teacher. They went from teaching in class to IT people themselves. And I know that has nothing to do with necessarily the ARPA, but if it does, I'd entertain that conversation. I'd love to be a part of that in the future as well. So thank you for letting me make those statements.
Absolutely. Any other comments? General comments?
Okay, so tomorrow night's the
No.
second.
wait.
On
Sorry,
this.
That's what I just said. You said any. Okay.
Yeah,
All
general
right, move on.
comments regarding the ordinance.
No, I'm okay with that. I agree
All
with that. That's great.
All right, having none, I would entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-04.
Second.
First by Counselor Garrett, second by Counselor Culp. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Heather, can I ask a question about whether or not it would even make sense to suspend the rules, given we have 2 other steps that have to take place?
Normally, I would say yes, so that we could get the dollars out the door as quickly as possible. But since we need those other 2 pieces before we can do that, I would recommend just waiting till the next meeting. That way we can package it all together and it won't confuse any members of the public or our first responders. on the
Because
timing.
even if we did suspend the rules, it would just simply pass the ordinance.
Correct.
Assuming it went through, it would not fund
Correct.
any of it. It's just 1 step out of 3 steps
Right.
that has to take
We've
place.
prepared the, with the help of Joe, the additional appropriation resolution. It's been noticed already. The piece that I can't prepare for you is the salary ordinances, because it's very specific information to each individual who's eligible. So once we get that piece, and in fairness, Joe was on vacation this last week, so I think we lots of moving parts there, but we should have both of those next meeting.
Well, I certainly appreciate your work on this. I know it's been quite a bit, so thank you.
And I think it's important that we keep having that kind of professional engagement as we spend these dollars to make sure that we do it properly. And the government
That's
doesn't
right.
come back in 2 years and say, you owe that money back because you forgot this I or crossed this T. So that's something to keep going on as well.
Well, I will just note for the council, we do have a deadline kind of looming as a first deadline related to ARPA, just so you can kind of mark your calendars. And I know I've talked to Cindy about that a little bit. It's we have a project and expenditure report that's due by the end of April. There's a couple critical things related to that report. One is it makes us eligible to get the rest of our money. And 2, the other thing that's important about that report, it's the one-time opportunity if we want to use this lost revenue category. That flexibility is a really tremendous opportunity for the town, because once we can credit the dollars in the bucket of lost revenue, then we're really able to spend them pretty much on anything that you are able to spend your government funds on, which gives a wide array of flexibility, especially Councilor Melton, to your point, to really look at sort of the community as a whole and figure out what is the highest and best use of those resources. So that's just, we want to make sure we're working towards that goal.
What was that date again, Heather?
It's, you have to have it turned in no later than April 30th, 2022. And given that it's a federal government website, I would start much earlier than that.
So
In my
who is responsible ultimately for that submission?
Yeah, the administration will need to do that report. And that report will, I'm certain, I'm looking at Cindy be coming out of Cindy's office. And
Okay.
Cindy did share she's going to a training next week to get some additional information on that, as well as other compliance and reporting requirements.
Okay.
That's a big date for us as our initial kind of thing to check off.
Okay. All right. Next up on the agenda is other matters, Councilor Cole.
Thanks. Just a reminder, tomorrow's town hall meeting at 6 o'clock.
in here. This will be our second meeting on the Preservation Commission, the recommendation. A couple things that I would like to say, just in case folks can't make it tomorrow night, and I know a lot of you showed up to my last one, so I appreciate that. I want to clear up a couple things, not nearly as many emails this time as we did last time. I think it's like 3 or 4, but two pretty glaring things that keep coming back is this is not a ordinance to create a historical district anywhere in Zionsville tomorrow or when we vote. This is just to create the commission. So nothing on there anybody's going to be held accountable for until a proposed ordinance for specific district become conservation or historical. So I know that's a little confusing. I've got a nice little video on there that explains it. You're more than welcome to watch that. And the second one was interesting because I didn't even dawn on me that it was going to be an issue, but almost every one of those folks want to know why the mayor is the only one that gets to appoint the folks on the commission. So I'll explain that really quickly. It's according to the statute. We don't have a choice on that. That's what, that's the rules that we have to follow. But just like tonight, we had to approve the pizzazz committee members that were recommended. Those would still have to come across us to recommend as well, or to approve or not approve. So even though the mayor appoints, if that was an issue with anybody, I'm not sure why, but it still has to come across to us to approve those members. So those are the two big questions that if you're not able to make it tomorrow night, I just want to make sure it's on record and we have it recorded. Hopefully a lot of people show up tomorrow. I'll be more than happy. Heather, I'm not sure if you're going to be here tomorrow night. Not tomorrow. So it's, again, my goal is to do the first reading this month, depending on, unless tomorrow just something comes out of the blue that I didn't know about. But man, I've been entrenched with this for 2 years, so I can't.
Is tomorrow gonna be a presentation or a question and answer?
Q&A, town hall.
Q&A? Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, kind of like we did last time. People just came up and asked questions, great questions. So
it's really important for people that may be involved in this to come out tomorrow night, right? If you're gonna read the first reading within a month.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is the last time to get your question and answers filled.
No, that's not, I mean, you can still come to the first reading. They can still come here and go to the president and say, hey, I'd like to speak, just like we did tonight. So, yeah, in fact, we talked about that a little bit. I was actually talking to Josh about it, Councilor Garrett, but I'm guessing there might be more people at the first and second reading than there will be tomorrow night, my guess. But we did have a full room last time, so who knows? And it was like 4 hours long. So we'll hopefully there's some people with some good questions. But thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody's time and help with that project. And hopefully we can get that reading to you guys, if not the 21st, hopefully the next one, but my goal is the 21st. That's all I have.
Very good. Anybody else?
I've got a question for council, and forgive me if you don't have an answer. I'm curious, there is a clause in our section in the reorg document that, and I can happily read it to you, but I'm sure you've got this thing memorized forward, backward, and sideways, but that gives the town council authority to investigate departments, officers, employees of the town. I'm curious if that language in there would give us the authority if we wanted to have a third-party financial audit done, because we don't have, generally the council doesn't have the authority to sign contracts, but if we wanted to have a third-party financial audit done, would this clause give us the ability to request that or have that done?
We could certainly request it. We get into a little bit of a trick box because only the mayor has the authority to obligate the town under a contract, even though we expend the funds. And you would need to do some sort of appropriation for those funds. You could also, the other option is to further engage the State Board of Accounts and ask them to, kind of step in and review financial information. That's something the town council could petition to the State Board of Accounts to see if they want to come up with. I know it's something that, we've talked to the administration about in terms of their current financial advisor. Maybe get asked if they could come and do a presentation, which is Crow. They've re-engaged Crow, who previously worked with the town.
Have they done the audit from 2021? I guess probably not yet. But
So we have done the State Board of Accounts audit.
Okay.
There were a couple of unresolved issues, but I do think they ultimately got resolved and filed.
For 19
For 19, yeah.
19,
So no, in 20,
with a state and a federal audit in 21.
yeah. Sorry, yeah, so
So-
we have done it for 19 and 20. I don't know that we've done anything yet for 21.
But those were based on 19 and 20 budgets.
Right.
So those were budgets from the previous administration.
Yeah, and I know there is the concern of the audit, which the audit is looking at compliance. So State Board of Accounts, for example, they're going to look at more technical things like, did you put the funds in the right, did you put the money in the right fund? Did you have a claim that was approved by the town council that matches this fund? So it's, for lack of a better word, a bureaucratic process to make sure that the money is moving, according to the rules that the State Board of Accounts set out. It's not always looking at what I would say the more big picture spending concerns, which I think of the council is, being able to understand and invest town resources or knowing what money you can spend because you don't have a clear picture of the financial situation of the town. I think that's one piece. And then there's sort of a compliance piece. Did we do it the right way? And so we've had some conversations with their team and legal counsel just about appropriations that didn't come back before the council that we've been trying to work through. And really, stressing that the rules from the State Board of Accounts require that every single expenditure, whether or not it's property tax funded, has to come through this council. That is what the law states. And there isn't a differentiation between funds that were given to us in a grant or funds that were in a special fund or funds that, were appropriated for a special purpose. It's really every dollar. It's because the town council is the check and balance. I mean, that's the structure of why we're here.
So let me ask a follow-up. So we still can't enter into a contract. If we were, as this section reads, if we were to investigate something and we incurred expenses to investigate, I mean, we don't have, I guess, how do we exercise this authority if we don't have the ability to sign a contract to spend the money to do so?
Yeah, and I can look back at that because I can look at that question specifically, and I'm happy to research a little further. The reason I'd say I look at it a little more specifically. So the answer I gave you is in a traditional mayoral structure. We don't have a traditional mayoral structure. So meaning the contractual obligation by the executive. So we need to look to see, the language of the Government Modernization Act, which was the basis, foundational basis for our reorganization document, says that anything in our reorganizational document will overrule other conflicting statutes. So we may be able to look to see if that's an opportunity to further analyze that in that context. So I'll put that on my list to do and circle back.
Heather, your firm as our representation, don't we have a contract with you?
We do.
So does that contract, that covers all of our needs as we move forward, does that not?
For legal services,
And that's.
but we don't have any access to any of the financial
So an
information
investigation.
for the town. The challenge is we don't have any access to the financial information to the town. So,
Yeah, neither do
Two of
we.
us.
I mean, so even like on the salary ordinance, like I couldn't prepare that for you because I don't have the calculations or financial access to the town's financial documents other than what's presented publicly or shared by the administration. So that's the piece that
That's
we're
the
missing.
disconnect.
Right.
So we have had the Board of Accounts involved already, the State Board of Accounts, is that correct?
Yeah, so the State Board of Accounts does audits periodically of all cities and towns. So it was a routine audit function.
It was a routine that we got them in, we did not get them involved or engaged.
We have chatted with the State Board of Accounts. We've shared that with the administration and been transparent about that because there was a question about, you may recall, when Tammy was CFO, we had a discussion about we had a non-DLGF budget and we had a DLGF budget, and we were asking some questions about the differentiation between these two budgets. We've always previously had one budget, was all the money receipted into the town. We do publish, for the purposes of the Department of Local Government Finance, our tax supported budget, which is part of the public hearing process and part of the requirements for raising taxes and allocating them back to the town. But we still only had one budget historically. And so there had been some question about whether or not, or statement made that if a budget item was not supported by tax dollars, that it didn't have to come to the council for appropriations. We did talk to the State Board of Accounts executive director, and we did confirm that all appropriations have to go through this body. So we did circle back and share that at the time with TME and their legal counsel to ensure that we were all operating under the same foundational basis.
Thank you.
I mean, just to be clear, I just think it's time we take some sort of action because we have not, I mean, we've this is our third year. We've had financials supplied to us maybe three times in that 3 years or 2+ years. And then in December, the CFO's asked to resign. And at almost exactly the same time, the contract for the financial advising firm that the administration was using was terminated.
Switched to from Crow.
Right, the one we
Right.
switched to from Crow. So
They switched to. from
yeah,
Crow.
they switched to from Crow. So that financial advising firm, at the same time that the CFO is being asked to resign, the contract was terminated. You couple that with not having any updated financial data, and that's one, I mean, in my mind, that's our biggest responsibility on town council, is to make sure that the money of the town is being spent wisely, being spent correctly, and everything. And we have no transparency into that. And actually, I credit somebody on social media that told me to quit complaining and do something. Said there's ways to go about this, so I'm doing it. So yeah, I think it's time to take some action, and if we can find a way to do a full financial audit of both the money going in, money going out, making sure that's correct along with the procedures and guidelines, I think it's necessary at this point. So however we need to do that, I'm supportive.
Is there a motion?
I wish. I don't think I've got enough information to make a motion at this point, unless Heather tells me otherwise.
It's interesting though, right? Because the way that Heather describes it is it's structured that we have to go to the mayor to say, we want to investigate the way you've been handling financials, sign this contract so we can investigate you.
Yeah.
And if she says no, then we don't have the ability to do that. But then why would she say no? Because what are we going to find? In theory, we shouldn't find anything. What's there to hide? So, I mean, I think we should ask for that. And if she says no, then I'd like her to explain to the community why we shouldn't be looking into that.
All right, then in that case, and after I make this motion, Heather can stop me if I'm not allowed to make this motion.
I'll second it first.
But if Heather, stop me if you need to, but I would make a motion that council engages Crow, or is it? I would, all right, you can amend it if you'd like to, but I'll make the motion that council engage Crow for a full financial audit of both the finances and the processes and procedures of the finance department.
Second.
Motion on the table, first by Councilor Traylor, second by Councilor Garrett. Any council dialogue beyond that? Otherwise, all those.
Heather's that sound okay?
Well,
to
I was
you?
just going to make a note, maybe with your very specific motion with a very specific company, which is fine. Is that
But it's a company that they're using.
That's right. They're already engaged by the town. So I think what you're really asking is for the function to be completed by our town and financial advisor, which may, if there's an opportunity to do that, and it should be a much easier process to accomplish because we're not asking for a separate contract.
Right. And I want to specify Crow because I don't want to specify whoever we're using because that could change. See what I mean?
I
I'm sure
trust the
they'll
guys at Crow.
appreciate that. Yeah. Additional.
I suppose there's no way I'm opposed to the concept of doing this. I do believe that this is probably something that the administration is wanting to do as soon as they have a new CFO anyway, and they just hired Crow. But
I love your optimism.
I would think it would happen anyway. So I don't know that me voting yes is going to, if it encourages that to happen, then that would be fantastic. But I would like to think it would happen regardless of this action, but that may be too optimistic.
That is.
So there's a motion to engage our current financial advisors specific to procedures and fill me in there. What was
Audit, full
And-
financial
an
audit.
overall financial audit?
Mhm.
Again, first by Counselor Traylor, second by Counselor Garrett. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed.
Mr. President, I was just going to maybe make one note. The other opportunity you might want to think about is we did engage a vendor to, do this financial transparency software for the town. I think that was back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. 2020, 2019, when we started changing everything over. Maybe it's an
2020,
opportunity
2021.
to bring that vendor in too, just to talk about that process and where that conversion is.
Is that OpenGov? Is that what we're
Yes,
talking about?
OpenGov.
I think
Just a
that's a separate issue, right? OpenGov is the platform. It has nothing to do with the numbers. It's like asking SAP to come in and do your financial audits. Like they're just going to talk about the process and maybe they can explain why it's taken so long. But I don't think they can account for things like, why was the town hall improvement fund drained to zero for the mayor's new office? Those kinds of things OpenGov is not going to be able to explain. That's where I support what Councilor Traylor is doing here on an actual audit
Yeah,
of
no.
money in, money out, balances, basic financial information. That's
Yeah.
all we're asking for.
Just a thought on an additional. opportunity.
Additional is a great idea.
Yeah.
For
It's
sure.
my understanding that software has all kinds of problems.
We did have a
And so,
contractual agreement with them and the council did appropriate money. So that might be something that we want to separately
Yeah.
talk with the administration about. And perhaps they need our support in making sure that gets corrected.
Maybe. Last item on the agenda is the approval of claims. I've had a couple of people ask me in the last few days, last few weeks about how we can approve claims without having financial data. And I think it's important to note, we've got $1.9 million worth of claims on this claim sheet. $1.9 million worth of claims. And not to beat a dead horse, but again, no financial data at all. So
I struggle with that too, because you then put our vendors at risk who perform services. It's a real challenge. It's hard to do it ongoing. I mean, at some point you just got to stop doing it, but you don't want to shut the town down either. So
yeah,
I struggle with that though. You are approving them blindly.
I'm sorry.
You're approving them blindly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's scary at times.
Well, again, it's important to note, I think we had a $34 million budget. Claim sheets, $1.9 million bucks. That's a lot of money
Yeah.
without having data. So
Yeah.
I would take a motion regarding claims.
Move to adopt.
First by Counselor Burke,
Second.
second by Counselor Melton. All those in favor of approving claims signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 4-2.
I'm just going to go on record. It's going to get harder and harder to keep saying aye to these. Just so we're aware, like we need financial information ASAP.
I would agree.
I'll make a motion to adjourn unless anything else from you.
Second, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank-